Good morning, class 7. We have started the chapter Women Change the World. So, we were discussing that what is the position of women, how women are discriminated when we talk or when we compare a woman or a girl with a man or a boy, and when we talk about different positions or different ranks, different work. Certain times you must have heard that if we have some work to be done and if it involves physical work, then most of the time parents say that the girls are asked that you cannot do it, leave it for the boy. This is a stereotype image which we have in our society. So let's continue with the chapter Learning for Change. Learning for change. Going to school is an extremely important part of your life. As more and more children enter school every year, we begin to think that it is normal for all children to go to school. Today, it is difficult for us to imagine that school and learning could be seen as out of bounds or not appreciated for some children. But in the past, the skill of reading and writing was known to only a few. Most children learned the work their families or elders did. For girls, the situation was worse. In communities that taught sons to read and write, daughters were not allowed to learn the alphabet. Even in families where skills like pottery, weaving, and craft were taught, the contribution of daughters and women were only seen as supportive. Sorry. For example, in the pottery trade, women collected the mud and prepared the earth for the pots, but since they did not operate the wheel, they were not seen as potters. So you must have seen, or if you talk to your grandparents, she would tell you, especially if you speak to your grandmother, she would tell you that most of the families, I'm not saying that everybody, that otherwise it would be prejudiced opinion, that she was not educated, she didn't go to school, or she has gone to school only till class 5 or so. The reason being that in those days it was considered that the boys or the male members were the ones who would take care of the family, so they were only given the education, and the females were not provided the proper education, so their condition were not very good. You can see the picture here. Ramabai, uh, shown above, with her daughter, championed the cause of women education. She never went to school but learned to read and write from her parents. She was given the title Pandita because she could read and write Sanskrit, a remarkable achievement, as women then were not allowed such knowledge. She went on to set up a mission in Keragaon near Pune in 1898, where widows and poor women were encouraged not only to become literate but to be independent. They were taught a variety of skills from carpentry to running a printing press, skills that are not usually taught in girls even today. The printing press can be seen in the picture on the top left corner. Ramabai's mission is still active today. So, if you talk to your grandparents, you will realize the discrimination which was there in those era. In the 19th century, many new ideas about education and learning emerged. School became more common, and communities that had never learned reading and writing started sending their children to school. But there was a lot of opposition to educating girls even then. Yet, many women and men made efforts to open schools for girls. Women struggled to learn to read and write. Let us read about the experience of Rashundari Devi, 1800 to 1890, who was born in West Bengal some 200 years ago. At the age of 60, she wrote her autobiography in Bangla. Her book, titled Amar Jiban, is first known as autobiography written by an Indian woman. Rashundra Devi was a housewife from a rich landlord family. At that time, it was believed that if a woman learned to read and write, she would bring bad luck to her husband and become a widow. Despite this, she taught herself how to read and write in secret well after her marriage. I would start working at dawn and I would still be at until well beyond midnight. I had no rest in between. I was only 14 years old at the time. I came to nurture a great longing. I would learn to read and I would read a religious manuscript. I was unlucky in those days, women were not educated. Later, I began to resent my own thoughts. What is wrong with me? Women do not read. How will I do it? Then I had a dream. I was reading the manuscript of Chaitanya Bhagavat, the life of a saint. Later in the day, as I sat cooking in the kitchen, I heard my husband say to my eldest son, Bipin, I have left my Chaitanya Bhagavat here. When I ask for it, bring it. He left the book there and went away. When the book had been taken inside, I secretly took out a page and hid it carefully. It was a job hiding it, for nobody must find it in my hands. My eldest son was practicing his alphabets at that time. I hid one of them as well. At times I went over that, trying to match letters from that page with the letters that I remembered. I also tried to match the words with those that I would hear in the course of my days. With tremendous care and effort, and over a long period of time, I learned how to read. After learning the alphabet, Rashundra Devi was able to read the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Through her own writing, she also gave the world an opportunity to read about women's lives in those days. Rashundra Devi wrote about her everyday life experiences in details. There were days when she did not have a moment's rest, no time even to sit down and eat. So she had spent and she had struggled a lot to study. Here we can see the story of Rokia Shekhawat Hussain and her dreams about Lady Land. Rokia Shekhawat Hussain was born into a rich family who owned a lot of land. Though she knew how to read and write Urdu, she was stopped from learning Bangla and English. In those days, English was seen as a language that would expose girls to new ideas, which people thought were not correct for them. Therefore, it was mostly boys who were taught English. Rukaya learned to read and write Bangla and English with the support of her elder brother and an elder sister. She went on to become a writer. She wrote a remarkable story titled Sultana's Dream in 1905. That was the year when Bengal was partitioned. To practice her English skills when she was merely 25 years old. This story imagined a woman called Sultana who reaches a place called Ladyland. Ladyland is a place where women had the freedom to study, work, and create inventions like controlling rain from the clouds and flying air cars. In this Ladyland, the men had been sent into seclusion, their aggressive guns, the other weapons of war, defeated by the brain power of women. As Sultana travels in the Ladyland with Sister Sarah, she awakes to realize that she was only dreaming. As you see, Rukaya Shekhawat Hussain was dreaming of women flying planes and cars even before girls were being allowed to go to school. This was the way in which education and learning had changed Rukaya's own life. Rukaya did not stop at getting education just for herself. Her education gave her the power not only to dream and write, but also to do more, to help other girls to go to school and to build their own dreams. In 1910, she started a school for girls in Kolkata, and to this day, the school is still functioning. Schooling and education today. Today, both boys and girls attend school in large numbers. Yet, as we will see, there still remains differences between the education of boys and girls. India had a census every 10 years, which counts the whole population of the country. It also gathers detailed information about the people living in India, their age, schooling, what work they do, and so on. We use this information to measure many things, like the number of literate people and the ratio of men and women. According to the 1961 census, about 40% of the boys and men okay 40% of boys and men 7 were literate. That means you can see here in the picture, unlike Rashundari Devi and Rokaya Hussain, who were not allowed to learn to read and write, large number of girls attend school in India today. Despite this, there continue to be many girls who leave school for reasons of poverty, inadequate schooling facilities, and discrimination. Providing equal opportunities school facilities to children for all communities and class backgrounds, and particularly girls, continue to be a challenge in India. 7-year-old and above were literate. This is that would count at least right their number compared to just 15% of the girls and women. In most recent census of 2011, these figures have grown to 82% for boys and men, 62% for girls and women. This means that the proportion of both men and women who are now able to read and have at least some amount of schooling has increased. But as you can also see, the percentage of the male group is still higher than the female group. The gap has not gone away. Here is a table that shows the percentage of girls and boys who leave school from different social groups, including SC and ST, that is scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. You have probably noticed in the above table that SC and ST girls leave school at a rate that is higher than the category all girls. This means that girls who are from Dalits and Adivasi backgrounds are less likely to remain in school. The 2011 census also found that Muslim girls are less likely than SC and ST girls to complete primary school, while a Muslim girl is likely to stay in school for around 3 years. Girls from other communities spend around 4 years in school. There are several reasons why children from Dalit, Adivasi, and Muslim communities leave school. In many parts of the country, especially in rural and poor areas, there may even be proper school nor teachers who teach on regular basis. If a school is not close to people's home and there is no transport like buses or vans, parents may not be willing to send their girls to school. Many families are too poor and unable to bear the cost of educating all their children. Boys may get preference in this situation. Many children leave the school because they are discriminated against by their teacher classmates like Om Prakash Valmiki. Remember, we have read about Om Prakash Valmiki. The second case is if the school is very far off, then the parents cannot afford to send their girl child. They are scared that it is not safe to send them if the school is far off. Women movement. Women and girls have the right to study and go to school. There are other spheres like legal reform, violence, and health there where the situation of women and girls has improved. These changes have happened automatically. Women individually and collectively have struggled to bring about these changes. This struggle is known as the women movement. Individual women and women organizations have different parts of the country. The diversity, passion, and effort of those involved make it vibrant movements. So, what are the different movements launched? Campaign is a fight to against the discrimination and violence against women are important part of women's movement. Campaign also led to new law being passed. A law was made in 2006 to give women who face physical and mental violence within their homes, also called domestic violence, some legal protection. Similarly, efforts made by women's movement led the Supreme Court to formulate guidelines in 1997 to protect women against sexual harassment. That means sexual harassment at the workplace and within educational institution. If women is facing some sexual harassment at the workplace or at the educational institution, they can lodge some complaint and they will be given help. In 1980s, women group across the country spoke out against dowry death, cases of young bride being murdered by their in-laws or husbands for the greed of the dowry. That is, they wanted money. So they came out on the streets, approaching the courts, and by sharing the information, eventually this became a public issue in the newspapers, and the families were punished who were seeking the dowry. Raising awareness. An important part of the women movement is to raise public awareness on women's right issues. This message has been spread through street plays, songs, public meetings. Protesting. Women movement raise voice against a violation take place. For example, when a law is or policy act against their interest, public rallies, demonstrations is taken out to make people or make women aware of it. Showing solidarity. The women movement is also about showing solidarity with other women causes. You can see above, women are holding up candle to demonstrate solidarity between the people of India and Pakistan. Every year on 14 August, several thousand women gather at Wagah on the border of India and Pakistan and hold a cultural program. On 8th March, International Women's Day, women all over the world come together to celebrate and renew their struggle. You can see it here. That's all in this chapter. I'll be sending the answers of the questions. You will be doing it in the notebook. I'll send some questions for the revision. Please do those questions in your notebook. That's all for today's class. Take care of yourselves. Be safe at home. Thank you.